Sometimes, man. Sometimes you gotta leave. Sometimes you have to go away from home in order to be truly valued and appreciated. And maybe find yourself. I mean, sometimes in the wilderness, you'll find something valuable and you come back and you can really enjoy it.
Hello you guys, it is Mario back with another video, and like I always say, don't be scared to fall because you may fall into a better situation. I like to feel like I'm a part of that better situation. You're already here, so you might as well subscribe. And without further ado, let's get into today's video. Judging by the title, I just wanted to basically talk about what it was like moving out of my dad's home, or my home that I was raised in, at 15. I'm just gonna basically talk about some of the things that contributed to me leaving my home at 15 and just feeling like I wanted to drop everything and just leave. What it took for me to get to that point, how it shaped me into the person I am today, but how it also has hindered me in present time. I really appreciate you guys for the support on the channel. You know, we're still figuring things out. We're still getting in the flow of things, but thank all of you guys for the support on everything that I try to do or anything that I'm trying to put out for you guys. It's greatly appreciated. Just for a little FYI, it is 2 in the morning. I've made a seriously bad habit of filming at 2 in the morning. I don't know. I just like the vibe of the world just being asleep. Wanted to talk about this because I know that there are probably people that are still dealing with this, you know, feeling like they don't like the home that they are at and they want to run away. So I'm speaking directly to those people. And even if you're a parent and you have children, this could be a conversation that could be for you too, to kind of understand children a little better so you can not push your children to this point. I encourage everybody to listen through. You might catch you some gems here and there. I speak wisdom and I preach positivity, so you definitely may catch a gem here and there. So definitely stick around. Let's go back in time. Let's go back to when I was 15. It was 2014. What was I dealing with at that point in my life? It's not like they didn't know that I was leaving. I told them that I was leaving and I actually left. And I stayed gone for a long time. I definitely left home when I was 15. And I didn't return back home until as of recently, a few years ago. So not only did I not see my father, I didn't see a lot of my family for almost a decade, and this was prior to me coming out. So a lot of my family, I didn't even give them the opportunity to see me for who I am today until a couple of years ago. My whole life has just been figuring out myself, and I haven't looked back. I didn't look back at my dad. I didn't look back at my family. I was just focused on me and carving out this new gay lifestyle that I was on a journey to just figuring out who I was. And the years went by really, really, really fast. And the first thing I noticed when I went back home the first time after all these years was all of my aunts just telling me how they accept my gayness and how they love me and they don't look at me any differently. And I'm looking, like, it kind of puzzled me for a minute, and I'm just like, why are we having this conversation now? But it made me think back on the fact that when I left, I know that I had a disconnect with my dad, but I never realized I completely cut all of my dad's side of the family off. And that was not something that I had to do. It was just kind of like, there was no way that I was going to be able to stay away from my dad while also maintain a relationship with my family. And I hate that, for one, I hate that I moved out anyway so young. But I just realized in that moment that not only did I create a bridge between me and my dad, but I created a bridge between me and my family, and they hadn't seen me for years. So the first time that they actually got to have a conversation with me, I'm gay as hell. They've never seen me like this before, and I'm looking at them like, I don't care if you accept me or not. I've been out for almost 10 years. I just realized that these people have not seen me in person in years. I really went cold turkey on everybody. It just made me feel a little bit sad because I didn't even give them the opportunity to, you know, accept me. But a few things, I was dealing with domestic violence, emotional neglect. I felt like I didn't have anyone to talk to. Really bad anxiety. I have really bad anxiety. I still have really bad anxiety, social anxiety and stuff like that, because my family always treated me like an outcast. They always treated me like I was different. That's how it felt with family, and not even just in family, just in life in general. But it started with my family. They always treated me kind of like an outcast because I was a little bit more cleaner. I was a little bit more polished. I was a little bit more zesty. And because I was raised by my dad's wife that was from Chicago, I got a lot of her habits. I mean, I didn't have a choice. Even down to the way that she speaks, pronounces all of her words. I got all of that because my daddy married her when I was like very, very young, like in the first grade. Like her way of thinking and her intellect and the way that she speaks, it eventually poured over into my speech pattern. I didn't think that it was a difference, or it's not something that I was aware of at the time, but because I grew up around this woman who wasn't from Mississippi, wasn't as country, and she had 4 girls that I also grew up around that I was really close with. I've always been really close with the girls. This woman was in my life more than my actual mother. My mother was actually not in my life. Her and my daddy were together until I was like 5, and then they split up, and I didn't see my mother or anything until I was like 10 or 11. It was for a lot of reasons why I didn't get to see her. It was not by choice, but it was something that my dad felt was necessary for us to grow, and he just didn't feel like she was at a place to have us in her life. That was something that I kind of held against my dad for a long time because I never really understood it. I felt like even if I'm a child, I should still be given the choice. No matter who my mom is, you should give that choice to me. It only made me kind of him in a way. He robbed me of the opportunity to have a relationship with my mother, and later on in life, when I finally reconnected with her at 10 or 11, she would pass away when I hit 15. I was robbed of having my mother in all of the ways that I could have had because substance abuse. I never really talk about this stuff because I don't really like to shed light on my parents in a bad way, especially my mother because she's no longer with us. But I just have to be honest about what was going on and why I ended up making a decision to leave home at 15. I was dealing with domestic violence within my home, battling homosexuality. When I came out, I went to an aunt's house that was she was very homophobic and she was very religious. My daddy made me stay there for a couple of days, and she read the Bible and she preached to me and just was like, you're gonna go to hell, you can't be doing it. Like telling me all of this as a child. Those are the type of things that always sat with me. I really thank God for evolution. My generation of people fighting for children to have it easier, because when I was coming up, we were told that if you kissed a gay boy, if you had sex with a gay boy, you were gonna get AIDS and you were gonna die. And that was something that was always programmed in our minds, and that is something that affects me even till today. So it was a lot of that. It was a lot of trauma. It was a lot of nights of me walking down the street and in the middle of the night just crying out my eyes. I remember one time I was in the rain just crying my eyes out, just like crying like, Lord, just please. And I've never even spoke on some of the things that I've been through, but now that I'm at a place where I can finally acknowledge these things because I have better relationships with these people, I can now have these conversations because I've done the work to heal myself, move past this and realize that this is just a part of my past and it doesn't have to affect me in the future. It was a plethora of things that made me move, but what was the final straw was my mother's death, me coming out, and how homophobic my brother was to me. Me and my brother have never had the best relationship because I felt like coming up as a gay boy in my generation, in my household, it's always been tough for me because I've always felt like I was proving my masculinity or proving that I was a man to my brother and my father. And with that, it came a lot of challenges that were hard for me to do because I was being forced to align with things that didn't align with me. I would always be challenged, or I always would be put in positions to make sure that I was aligned with the future that everybody around me saw for me. I was dealing with a lot. It was a lot going on in my head, but I was also dealing with a lot physically. It was bad to the point where bruises were on me. My mother passed away. I came out. My first boyfriend broke up with me because his mother discovered our messages. I have a story time on that. It'll pop up right here in the cards. So I was alone. On top of grieving from my mother's passing, and my stepmother and my father, they divorced. I was very close with those girls. I wasn't close to my dad and my brother at all because of the toxic relationship that we had. It just so happened that at the same time that my mother passed away, my daddy also happened to be divorcing her. Not only did I lose my mother, I lost my boyfriend, I lost the sisters that I was so close with. I was left with my dad and my brothers, people that I didn't feel knew me or even liked me. I felt like a burden for so long with my dad. I remember when my mother passed away, the last thing that my stepmother gave to me before she moved out of my dad's house and she went on about her life, she gave me a journal. I wasn't talking to anybody. I wasn't talking to my dad. I wasn't talking to my brother. I just sat in my room for days and days and days, and I didn't say anything. I was just writing in the journal. I wasn't eating or anything. I just was looking for an escape. And during this time, it wasn't as hard on me because my dad and everybody else knew what I was dealing with. So people gave me my space and people were a bit more softer with me, which is something that I had never experienced from my family before. My dad, I come from a family that believes that tough love is the only way that a boy or a man should be shown love. So I never experienced anything like that. But it wasn't enough. I knew that I needed to get away. And I needed to get away because I was feeling the urge very strongly to be myself. This was before I came out. So that was eating at me, and I was just like, I done lost my mom, and I was battling homosexuality. I would go to my mother's side of the family sometimes. All of my family has always loved me because I was always with my dad and I had such a bad experience. I've always dreamed of just going to my mother's side of the family and just seeing what it would be like. I didn't realize the full severity of how different it would be until I packed up my things and left my dad's home. And this is going to be where we're going to transition into how different it actually was, what I figured out, how it matured me, how it affected me even today. Let's talk about it because it was actually crazy. So initially when I left my dad's house and I went to my grandfather's house, still rediscovering myself with my gayness, I met my best friend that is still my best friend to this day. If you've been subscribed to my channel for that long, you know exactly who I'm talking about. But if you don't, she should be making a debut back on this channel very soon. Just hold on, we're going on. So I moved out there and the first thing I noticed was that I was young, I was 15. My dad wasn't supporting me at all. I had to get it out the mud, but I wasn't old enough to get a job yet. So this is when my granddad was my sole provider in whatever I needed, even for school and things like that. But immediately when I hit that 18, actually 17, when I hit 17, got those license, I got that permit, and then a week later I got those license. 18 came, I got my first job at Popeyes. I was walking back and forth to work, walking in the absolute rain. I remember one time I had to walk home 2 hours on the train track in the middle of nowhere. Like, it was so fucking scary. But I didn't have nothing else I could do. I've been through some things. It made me stronger, so I'm not even tripping about it for real. I got my first car. The thing is, what I've noticed about moving out at 15 is that I grew up entirely too fast. The fact that I forced it before it was time for me to grow up, that time I will never get back. I made a grown man decision at the age of 15 to leave home. Not only did I make that decision to leave home, my daddy agreed to let me go. And he was not going to help me with anything. And he stood on that. He didn't help me with anything. When I chose to leave my dad's home, fend for myself, he didn't help me with anything. I didn't ask him for nothing. I said I was going to figure it out. And I get my pride from my dad. Because all those years that I was struggling and walking home and stuff like that, there were a few times where I had to call my dad and he had to leave work and come get me to take me home, even though he said that he wasn't going to support me. The help was always there, and I just was so big on my pride and just wanted to figure things out for myself. In hindsight, I didn't realize that I was rushing a childhood that I would be yearning for years to come. I'm 26 right now, and I really hate the fact that I rushed my childhood because the adulthood is nothing compared to childhood. And the fact that I rushed it is something that I wish I wouldn't have done. As an adult, I am yearning for that time back. And I feel like I robbed myself of a longer childhood because I made that decision. On the flip side, stepping out on faith and believing in myself and working hard to get myself to where I am today. And it's crazy because physically I look young, but mentally, because I've been through so much and I've been basically grown since I was 15, I have a lot of wisdom. It's where a lot of my wisdom comes from. It's where a lot of my perspective comes from. It's where a lot of my knowledge has come from. Because I decided to step out into this life and fend for myself and figure these things out for myself. I've bumped my head a lot. But because I've bumped my head, I've also learned a lot. I've learned a lot before I was supposed to be learning it. I'm way past my time of age even now. I feel like I have the mindset of a 30 plus year old. And I've heard that from older people and younger people, that I just have a lot of wisdom. I think in my past life I was older because I feel like I have an old soul but a young spirit. Like I'm very immature because part of me wants to hold on to that youth because I didn't have it long enough to begin with. But mentally I'm older because of experiences and things that I've been through. It's a good thing, but it's a bad thing. I rushed it, but I wouldn't be the person I am today hadn't I made that decision and went through those experiences and bumped my head. Everything happens for a reason. Definitely matured. I definitely needed to be mature. I definitely needed to see things from a different point of view. I definitely needed to step out and get away from those homophobes in my family and figure out my life without all the domestic violence and the bullying and the just feeling like an outcast with the family. I wasn't going to be able to find out who I was. When I left home, that's honestly when I found my best friend. I started getting more acquainted with gay people, people who have things in common with me, and I started to come more out of my shell. That's when I got into makeup. That's when I got into dressing. That's when I started being more of myself. And I needed that. I don't think that I would have gotten that if I would have stayed within that home. Although I came out of the closet and I owned who I wasn't old enough to basically have a mind of myself because of how my parents were. I say all of that to say, if you're a person who is dealing with domestic violence, homophobic parents, I'm not telling you to deal with anything, but if there are options, if you have options to get away from that, please take those options. Try to stick it out as best as you can, but if it gets to the point where it's out of your control, definitely leave. It will do more damage staying there than you will probably realize in the moment. Distance and time does heal wounds. The well-needed distance between me and my father, it gave us time to miss one another, see the value in me having a life without him. I got to see the work that he put in. I'm pretty sure that he got to see what it was like to have a life without me. And it made us miss each other even more. So once we came back together, our minds were a bit more open to it and a bit more willing to see where each other came from. And I don't think that we would have gotten to that place while being within the same home. I had to get out and grow myself because my father, whether he realizes it or not, he was stunting my growth. My brother was also stunting my growth. My family was also stunting my growth so that I could put those boundaries in place and, introduce the new me. I definitely went through a lot and it made me who I am today. I'm that girl. I've always been that girl. I've always been confident or whatever. I've always been strong. I've always been headstrong. I've always been positive because I've been through so much. And I want people to realize those people that are perceived as strong or look like they have it all together, it's because they've been through things. Experiences shape you. It's what makes you more smarter because you've bumped your head enough and you learned. I've helped so many people with just my voice. And it's all because I've been through so much. I've thought things out. I've had those conversations. I've communicated with people. I've asked those questions. Throughout my life, I've always tried to advance myself. And I've always tried to be better at whatever I was committing to. And I've always been determined because I didn't have anything when I left home. I left a home of getting haircuts and having great Christmases and having good food cooked for me to go to my mother's side of the family that doesn't really have as much money as my dad had. I sacrificed a lot to have this freedom. My looks went down. I wasn't able to afford clothes for myself for school. I wasn't working. I was only 15. I was still in school. I couldn't get a job. My grandfather could only do so much. He could only support me so much. I ended up having to cut my own hair sometimes. I wasn't dressing up and stuff like that. Like it affected me a lot. It flipped my life upside down. It made me cherish where I was before, but I stood in the fact that I needed to grow. I never ever went back. That's how I became who I am today. If you're ever dealing with something like this, follow your heart. It's all gonna work out. Everything happens for a reason. You're watching this video for a reason. If you made it to the end, don't forget to like the video if you like this conversation. This is just basically me venting. I feel like YouTube has always been a diary for me, and I definitely want to get back to that. Yes, I want to create content that you guys love, but I also want to create content that I love and things that I can reflect on. Whether it is value to you, it could be value to someone else or someone else in the future. It'll be value to me and my journey just for documentation reasons. But I'm also hoping that it can help someone else, or just even if it makes you guys understand me a little bit better. That's always a good thing as well. So I will definitely see you guys in the next video. And don't forget to stay honest and be honest with yourself. I hope you guys are having an amazing October. We are here. I'm thinking about doing story time month. What y'all thinking about that? I'm thinking about doing that for sure. I'm going to go ahead and start posting the polls within probably the middle of this month, so I can go ahead and start filming to get ahead of the game. So definitely look out for those polls for the story times. And we're going to get this juicy or whatever. So thank you guys for all of the support on the channel this far. I love you guys so much, and I will definitely see you guys for another video. Where's my phone? Oh. Let me get off here, because girl, I've been ignoring people. I've been filming for like 2 hours. I'll see y'all in the next video.